What does an archaeological dig along Deadwood's lower Main Street and 5 rusty firearms have in common? I'm Ivan Hovland, Black Hills Firearms historian. Find out in this edition of Deadwood Historic Preservation Moments.
In the summer of 2002, the Deadwood Historic Preservation Commission funded the second of 4 archaeological field seasons along historic Main Street. The area under investigation was the location of Deadwood's historic Chinatown district. During this field season, state archaeologists unearthed and discovered the remains of several structures. In amongst the foundations of these buildings, archaeologists unearthed 5 relic-condition firearms. Encased in a shell of corrosion, the firearms were almost indistinguishable. Former South Dakota state archaeologist Chris Leatherman, who worked during the dig, recounts this discovery.
We found this pistol here in the corner of one of the stone foundations. In fact, it was, as I recall, it was we were removing some soil with a shovel, and this big old lump of iron came out, and it didn't take too long to determine that it was a gun. And that was pretty exciting. And you know why they were there. They could have just been disposed of. That they could have been hidden there and forgotten about. I think there's a lot of cool mystery behind these guns.
After the discovery, the firearms and other archaeological artifacts were transported to the South Dakota Archaeological Research Center in Rapid City, South Dakota. The artifacts were lightly cleaned, organized, and cataloged by archaeological staff. Once completed, the state archaeologists then began the daunting task of analyzing the artifacts and writing the archaeological report. This process took 5 years to complete. At the end of the project, archaeologists determined that several of the firearms were associated with a livery or stable dumping area. The most intact firearm, however, was associated with the stone foundation of a structure. Based on historic records, this structure was constructed sometime before 1891. The firearms and Chinatown artifacts were occasionally displayed within Deadwood. Beginning in 2012, Deadwood Historic Preservation staff began inquiring about cleaning and stabilizing the firearms. Adequate funds were set aside for the conservation and stabilization of the firearms 1 year later.
To find out how these guns were preserved, watch the next edition of Historic Preservation Moments.